Did you know Bill Gates spends $5 million a year to offset his family's carbon footprint? And he's not alone. Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and Larry Page all claim to offset their private jet emissions. Even Shell, yes, the oil giant, vows to be a net zero emissions energy business by 2050. Carbon Brief analysis reveals that 2/3 of the world's biggest companies with net zero targets are using carbon offsets to help meet their climate goals. And to your surprise, these same companies are some of the world's biggest polluters. So what exactly are these magical carbon credits that let billionaires and big corporations get away with business as usual? Simply put, a carbon credit represents 1 ton of CO2 emissions supposedly reduced or removed from the atmosphere. These credits are generated through projects like planting trees, protecting forests, or capturing methane from landfills. Big companies buy these credits to offset their own emissions and claim they're going carbon neutral. It sounds good on paper, but the reality is far more complex and far less effective. According to the same analysis, 34 companies, including oil giants like Shell and Chevron, and car manufacturer Volkswagen, use carbon credits to offset over 38 million tons of CO2 between 2020 and 2022. And over half of these offsets came from a forest protection project called REDD+. The idea behind REDD+ is simple: pay developing countries to protect their forests and preventing the release of stored carbon. But REDD+ is riddled with problems about its own effectiveness. In 2023, a bombshell investigation found that more than 90% of rainforest carbon credits from Verra, the world's leading carbon credit certifier and a key player in the REDD+ framework, were likely worthless. Many REDD+ projects claim to protect forests that were never actually at risk of being cut down. They're essentially getting paid to do nothing. And some of these projects have been accused of human rights violations, including the forced displacement of indigenous communities from their ancestral lands. So why are companies so eager to use these controversial credits? Well, REDD+ credits are often cheaper than other types of offsets, and they allow companies to claim they're protecting vast swathes of rainforest, which sounds great in a press release. Shell, the top user of carbon credits among these companies, offset 9.9 million tons of CO2. This does sound impressive until you realize that Shell's annual emissions are over 1.6 billion tons. Those offsets represent less than 1% of their total impact. It's starting to look like carbon offsets are less about meaningful climate action and more about creative accounting and PR. But surely some carbon credit projects must be legitimate, right? Well, yes and no. There are certainly projects out there doing good work, but verifying the real impact of carbon offsets is incredibly challenging. Take tree planting projects, for example. It takes decades for newly planted trees to absorb significant amounts of carbon. But what happens if those trees die or burn down in a wildfire? All that stored carbon is released back into the atmosphere. So how do we fix this broken system? First, we need much stricter standards and independent verification for carbon offset projects. Second, companies need to prioritize actually reducing their emissions. Third, we need more transparency. It should be easy to trace exactly where carbon credit money is going and what real-world impact it's having. The good news? At EcoCreds, we're building a blockchain-based platform to make the entire carbon credit process transparent and accountable. Every step from initial carbon reduction to final credit purchase would be recorded and verifiable. Take Bill Gates' $5 million carbon offset purchase as an example. With EcoCreds, you could trace exactly where that money went, its real-world impact, and the verified carbon impact of each action. Now, it's important to note that carbon credits alone can't solve the climate crisis. They should be seen as one tool among many, not a silver bullet. The real work is to reduce our emissions, innovate in clean energy, and make sustainable changes to how we live and work. Follow us on X to learn more about innovative climate solutions and sustainability.